In today's video, you're going to be talking about the state of the grant writing industry. Things that we're starting to see take shape and just the direction that we're generally going so that you can be ahead of it and not taken by surprise and just really at the front end of where that grant money is. All right, with that, let's hit it. Talk about is that money is moving around, right? So if you think about funding in different types of buckets, right, the different sort of categories that funding can come from, federal funding, generally speaking, is declining for many categories. Like, for example, when the Clean Water Act was passed in the 70s, there was this big influx of money to help communities fund water treatment plants. So there was a lot more of that, and now there's less and less and less over time. But that said, the federal government is still the biggest grant provider, and so there's a lot of great funding there, but it shifts. It shifts depending on current policies, on things that people are really caring about, like renewable energy. When it was super innovative and at the newest kind of like the pioneering stages, there was more grant funding than there is for it now, right? Because it's always shifting. So something just to be aware of is in whatever industry you're in, tune into where is that funding going, right? So it's moving. And then the other thing I wanted to bring your attention to is that one of the biggest areas that we're seeing growth in is in private capital from companies that are getting into the grant giving business, but their motivations are different. They're often looking for what is the business development benefit for me to be community minded while also getting out our brand and like it's worth more to us than just ad spend, right? So for example, we have a student in our program who did a beautiful job submitting a grant application to an airline, and she presented that she is giving them $200,000 of media and brand value for the $20,000 that she was asking for. And it was very compelling. Like, it's not made up numbers, it was really impressive. And so, that's a great example of pivoting how you talk about why it makes sense to work together. Thinking about, are you applying to the federal government, a state government, or a province, or are we talking about it for private business? And corporation giving grew from 14% than it was last year, right? And they're mostly giving to arts and cultural organizations, animal shelter and wellness, environmental and education causes, right? So tune into what are those potentially those large employers or those companies that are in your community that you might be able to align and collaborate with. Topic number 2 is this big emphasis on sustainability. A lot of organizations have been getting by with grants making up way too big of a piece of your pie to fund your organization, and it makes you super vulnerable because funders want to fund things that are typically these unique projects that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, so they don't feel that they are like you need the funding every single year forever to sustain. So it's really important to be figuring out how, even as a nonprofit or whatever you are as an entity, how can you be sustainable and actually have a revenue source for the value that you provide aside from grants to cover those base costs like salaries and rent, etc. So one tool that you might consider checking out, borrowed from the business world, is the business model canvas. You can find information on strategizer.com, I think, online, but essentially it's a one-page business plan. Super, super easy, and that's a great way to start ideating and refining how your organization, no matter what it is that you do, can still draw some sort of revenue-producing value out of what you do and not have to be super dependent on grants. So that when you do go pursue grants, you can show, hey, we're really a viable and healthy organization. Okay, point number 3 is that we're also seeing funders more now than ever want to see very genuine collaboration between you and other organizations. So a letter of support is not enough, right? Like, they want to see how is their investment in you getting leveraged further and further forward, right? So what are those meaningful partnerships, working partnerships looking like? And you and I both know that stuff takes time, right? So it's important to start thinking about who do we want to have strategic partnerships and relationships with, and then invest in those relationships and make them very strong highways for both of you to both benefit. So you're not scrambling to try to come up with these sort of ingenuine partnerships every application. Like, just figure out like who are the certain organizations that we want to work with, like celebrating what they are best at, that we can bring what we're best at, and together we really have a 1 + 1 = 3 situation. Okay, funders are also going back from a survival state to getting back on giving with their intended strategy, their giving strategy. So what that means is we've gone from the coronavirus pandemic causing foundations to just stop everything that they were normally doing for funding history and just go into like a survival mode to help you survive and get through it. But they're going to be, that pendulum is swinging back to their intentional giving plans. And so it's important to think about the organizations you're really curious about, asking that question, saying, hey, what are how is your funding strategy either staying the same or changing this year? And it's a good question you should be bringing up and understanding, so that you know if the organization is doing some like 1 or 2 degree pivots differently that you want to make sure you're aligning to. So that is the grant writing industry 101, the state of where we're at today. I'm curious what you're observing, what you think that you're finding, questions that you have additionally. So please feel free to post those in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe. We drop a video about once a week. And thank you so much. Loved having to spend some time with you today and share some of the knowledge on what we're seeing in the world of grants. All right, that's it. Talk to you later.